Zach Lavine is going to be traded. Well, technically, he's not getting traded yet, but he will be getting traded. The Chicago Bulls and Zach Lavine have finally announced that they are ready to hear talks when it comes to trading Zach Lavine for something in return. Now, I talked about it before in my review for Zach Lavine and how I felt about it. I don't know if this is a rebuild or them just trying to find another superstar because they feel like Zach Lavine is unfortunately just not going to be that guy for them, and they'd rather Zach Lavine go be somewhere else and be more successful. So now they're trying to hear trade stuff. And I told you guys in the last video that make sure to check it out as well if you didn't check it out. But I told you guys in the last video that I was going to do my top 5 teams for where I think they're going to go. So here it is. My top 5 NBA teams that I think can trade for Zach Lavine. But before we get into this video and talk about all of that, let's hear that intro. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another What's Next on Basketball video YouTube channel video. I am your host as always, Jeremy, and as you saw from the introduction of this video, we are going to talk about my 5 NBA teams that I think could trade for Zach Lavine. Now, here's a breakdown of how I did this. So first off, just to get it out of the way, I did these trades based off of the Bulls doing a rebuild. So a lot of these trades, you can see a lot of picks being involved. Some players where you're going to be like, why would they want those players? But it's just because it's a rebuild, so you know. You're going to get back trash players because you're trying to get high draft picks. And that's kind of the idea I have here. Now, I don't know for sure if, again, you'll look at some of these trades and be like, nah, I don't think that will happen. Nah, I don't think that will happen. I used this website called Fans. I think it's pronounced Fanspo NBA Trade Machine. I actually saw Kenny Beecham. Shout out to the king of the fourth corner, Kenny Beecham. I saw him in one of his videos actually use this website, so I tried it myself, and it kind of is pretty cool. Actually, I personally think it's cool because not only can you do trades on here, but it will tell you if it is a success or a failure. And it'll be like, all right, here's what you would do. Here's why this is a failure, and it'll tell you why. It won't just say, oh, you failed. It'll only tell you like, hey, the team can't get this player because this will go out over their cap space or something like that. So I'm hoping this is kind of more of a trustworthy site to use when it comes to like doing trades. And again, all the trades I did, as far as I've seen, they are trades that could happen. I'm not saying these are the only ones, but these are the ones where I looked at and I said, okay, I think this is somewhat good. Because again, remember, I'm going based off of if they're in a rebuild phase. So some of these things you're going to look at and be like, I don't know. And again, this is just my opinion for the teams that I think they should trade for or they could trade for. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, I kind of lied about the title. There's actually 7 teams. I'm going to talk about the 2 honorable mentions right now, actually. And then we'll get to actually the top 5. It's just, I had 7 teams that I went down with out of the 12 I think I chose. And I was like, okay, I want to at least mention these 2 teams because some people are going to look at these teams and be like, why didn't I add them to the list? And I want to at least give my explanation as to why I didn't put them on there. But yeah, again, this is just to be a nice little fun video for you guys to watch. I don't know how long this video will be. Hopefully, again, I'm crossing my fingers that it's not too long. But y'all already know this is a What's Next on Basketball video. And as you can see from this channel, our videos are always like half an hour or longer. So, yay, that'll be fun. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to the honorable mentions. All right, so the first honorable mention team that I will tell you guys is the Philadelphia 76ers. So the reason why I don't have them in the top five is simply because there were actually news recently that was reported that apparently the Sixers are actually not really interested in Zach Lavine anymore. Because during the first news, when Zach Lavine and the Chicago Bulls had announced, like, hey, we are going to start looking at trades now, that we will let you guys offer trades to us. The 76ers were one of those names that were mentioned as teams that were interested in Lavine. But recent news has come out that they're not really interested anymore. And because of that, I was like, okay, well, I at least want to put him in honorable mention because it could still happen. It really could. Things change. They might end up wanting Zach Lavine. I don't think they're going to want him anymore just because of how great the team is doing right now. So that idea of Lavine going to Philadelphia is probably out of the window. But again, I still want to put this trade out for you guys. So right now on your screen, you should be able to see the trade idea that I did. And again, remember, I'm going by if the Bulls are trying to rebuild. So what I did here is the Chicago Bulls are going to trade a Zach Lavine, a first round and second round pick. The years, you'll see the years on there that I chose. I don't really care what year they do. It's just this is my idea of like how it would go. So I think they're going to trade Zach Lavine and a first and second round pick to the 76ers. In exchange, the 76ers are going to trade Tobias Harris, 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. Now, I don't know if that's too much for Lavine. I do feel like Lavine is like, at least when it comes to the Chicago Bulls, they're gonna want a lot back. So you'll see maybe some outrageous trades here where you're like, okay, I don't think he's worth that many picks. I don't know. Because again, a lot of these teams have really asked for a lot now when it comes to trading their players back. And especially if they're trying to rebuild, they're gonna want a lot of picks back because that's how you do a rebuild. So that means that the Chicago Bulls will get Tobias Harris again, 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. And the 76ers will get Zach Lavine, a first round and a second round. And again, this was a success when I did it on the Fanspo trades machine. This is what they gave me, and they said this could work out. So if the Sixers were to trade, this is what my idea of the trade would look like. And yeah, I feel like it's a pretty good trade. Sixers are getting back a star player that they could put in the shooting guard position. Now, again, who's going to be your power forward? That's something you can just figure out later down the line. And as for the Bulls, obviously you're not going to get a shooting guard back, but you have a new power forward now that it also is on an expiring contract. So that's great for you guys. You won't have him for very long. And then you'll have all these picks in return as well. Because with the 76ers, they have a lot of picks they can give away, and they're not here for another rebuild. They're trying to get Joel Embiid a championship, and this is their best chance to do that. You'll have Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Zach Lavine all on the same team. That's perfect, and that's why I think this trade could work out for them. But yeah, unfortunately, since I don't think they're gonna go after him again, that's why I put him in the honorable mention. And yeah, overall, that's just the trade. So the second honorable mention team that I will put on here is actually the Los Angeles Lakers. And this one is probably a big shock because this is like one of the highest teams when it comes to like teams interested in Zach Lavine. And the reason why I put him as an honorable mention and not my top 5 is simply because I could not figure out a trade that would work out with them. And that's really it. They're on here because I couldn't figure out a trade that would work out for both teams that would be fair. Because there were players they could give away. Because again, I was trying to make sure there wasn't going to be too much of a cap impact on both teams. It might end up being where they're going to have a huge cap impact if the Lakers and Bulls were to trade. Because simply, I was thinking about maybe trading them, like D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves. D'Lo might be a good one that I could see them trading, but Austin Reeves is off the table. There's no way they would ever trade Austin Reeves. So, and especially Rui Hachimura as well. So there wasn't that many players where I felt like the Lakers would be comfortable enough to trade for because they're already struggling. And now you're going to give away more shooters and more defense that they already kind of have a lack of and make it worse. And Zach Lavine, he's a good offensive player, and he can be an okay defender here and there, but I don't think he's a game changer for that. So it might end up costing your team more than benefiting them. We might have another like Russell Westbrook situation where a top star player comes in and then they're just like not really able to help that much. And it was just more so I couldn't figure out a trade for them. So that's why they're in the honorable mentions. And that's all I really have to say about that. Alright, now that we've gotten the honorable mentions out of the way, now we can start into our top 5 teams here. So at number 5, I have the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls, the trade that I did for them, as you can see on here on the screen, is the Chicago Bulls will get Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, 3 first rounds actually, and 1 second round. The Miami Heat will get Zach Lavine, Julian Phillips, 2 first rounds, and 1 second round. This is my idea of what they could probably do because, again, Tyler Hero has already shown that he can be a very injury-prone player. So at this point, I feel like the Miami Heat have to look at each other and say, listen, we can either have Tyler Hero and hope he does good, which there is a very high possibility for that, or we can get Zach Lavine, who is still 28 years old. He's not that old yet, and could definitely help this team go very far. They already shown that they can go to the NBA Finals without Tyler Hero. And again, Zach Lavine has his problems too with injuries, but I feel like they would have a better chance of having Zach Lavine than Tyler Hero. Duncan Robinson, I also put on this trade. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how Duncan Robinson is doing this season. But from the times I have seen him play, I don't think he'll be that big of a cost for the team. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't, but he's just on there as well to kind of help with the Caps impact. And again, Zach Lavine, I feel like you gotta give a lot of first rounds in return. And they got like a second round. Because again, I feel like they're gonna want all this stuff. I don't know. It's like that's kind of like in what the trade I looked at and what I felt like could potentially be. I don't know if I would say the best trade, but a trade I feel like both sides would be okay with. Again, maybe they wouldn't. As you can see here, it tells you also like the wins, the minutes per game that would go up, the offensive, how it would go, the defense, how it would go. And yeah, that's all I really had to say about that. I think this would be a good trade for both sides. Maybe some people might disagree on it, but again, the Miami Heat were another team that was up there when it came to trading for Zach Lavine. And since they didn't get Damian Lillard, I'm very positive they're desperate. So I could see them doing a move like this to make sure to bring someone in that could help Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. I guess we'll say Kyle Lowry as well, but he's not really the same guy no more for Kyle. Now let's move on to the next team here. The next team that I'm going to talk about, the 4th team, is the New York Knicks. So the New York Knicks, let me pull it up here. The New York Knicks, the trade that I have for them is one that unfortunately I would not want to see happen. But I have them on here because, again, with a star like this potentially getting traded, you have to put the Knicks up here because the Knicks will always be in talks when it comes to trades like this. So I have one that we could do. Now I'm going to explain, what the trade will be and if I do think it could happen or not. It's basically, here's how it's going to get broken down. The Chicago Bulls will get RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. In exchange, the New York Knicks are getting Zach Lavine, 2 first rounds and 3 second rounds. Because I feel like both sides are going to want a lot more. They might want a little bit more for Zach Lavine, but I know like the Knicks are going to be like, all right, well, you got to give us back something good. And most likely if the Knicks do trade this, maybe they might want like another player in return, not just Zach Lavine only. But since I was only looking at the shooting guard position, and at least on here, they say RJ Barrett's a shooting guard. I don't think it's a shooting guard. I'm pretty sure he's a small forward. I did see if Zach Lavine could play the small forward, and it is something he could do. I don't know how good he would be at it. Maybe we can move like someone like Quentin Grimes to the small forward. I don't know how well he would do there. But again, these are all stuff that they can figure out later and see how it would go. Because if you just have to like put Quentin Grimes on the bench and have like Zach Lavine starting, some fans would be upset with it. But if we're getting someone like Zach Lavine, I feel like that could really help. Now, again, this isn't a trade I would want to happen. I don't think the Knicks should trade RJ Barrett, especially with how well RJ Barrett has been playing. But again, I'm trying to look into this for each team as a business perspective and saying, listen, I'm the owner of this team and I need a player that I know is a superstar and could really help this team. So I'm going to have to give someone valuable back. And who better than RJ Barrett, who is starting to have a really good season and could be a star for that team in the future. And he's 23 years old. There's no way the Chicago Bulls would pass this up. Now, people are going to look at me and be like, are you serious? So if that's the case, and what you just said, why would we trade for Zach Lavine? As Knicks fans, they probably look at me and say, why would we trade for Zach Lavine? Why would we get a player that's older than RJ Barrett and has been, more, I guess, has more injuries and stuff than him? He's getting older. He's already 28. And I still think, in my opinion, that's still fairly young for the NBA. He's still around his peak. And this is more so the Knicks being like, okay, we are here to be contenders. Like, they're going to put everything in it to win. As for Evan, come on. We all know Evan was going to get traded sooner or later. He's not even, for those of you that don't know, Evan isn't even in the starting rotation. Or not starting rotation, just like the rotation as a whole for the Knicks. He's like on the bench. Never plays unless we're either really winning or we really need someone out there. And again, I think that would work out. Now, this one could definitely get tweaked to be like, okay, well, let's get Zach Lavine and another player back to make it work. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Again, I just did it for the cap impact. As you can see here, it wouldn't be that big of an impact for both teams. I'm sure in an actual trade, I'm sure like one team's going to get a way bigger impact than the other. That's just how it goes. And with the Knicks, I'm sure they would be fine, probably financially, if they were to like try to get more plays in return. I'm sure they could do it. Again, me personally, I don't know if I do this trade, but I was trying to look at it in a business perspective of just trying to get a superstar and giving whatever they would want. And yeah, I don't know. Again, let me know what you guys feel about these trades. Each one you can like put in the comments, be like, oh, I think this is an awful trade. Like, what do you think I could change? What do you think I should do? But let's just move on to the next team. All right, team number 3. This one is, I think, another one, at least for Kings fans, they're really going to look at me and say, no, we would never do this trade. Ever, ever, ever. Again, I try to go with players that I feel like the Bulls would want back in exchange for Lavine. And it's these two players. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Most likely, this is probably, out of all the trades I put on here, this is probably the least one to happen just because of how it looks. But the trade I was able to come up with was the Bulls would trade Zach Lavine, 1 first round, and 2 second rounds. Now, you could argue another first round should be in here because of the players I'm trading away. And that is Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter. They will also be trading away 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. Now, hold on. Before you Kings fans or any other NBA fans put your pitchforks up, let me explain. I'm sure you're already mad at me and feel like I'm not cooking. You're probably looking at me and being like, bro, who let this man cook for this video? Now listen. I tried my best to make it as fair as possible where I feel like both sides could win. The Kings are getting Zach Lavine. So that's a shooting guard already there that you can be fine with. Now, I know both Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter are great when it comes to shooting. I feel like the Kings would be fine. I feel like if they did this trade, they would be A-okay. That's why I was okay with trading these two. And then again, you're getting back Lavine, a first round, and 2 second rounds. Now, you could argue that you should get 2 first rounds. You could say, I think both of them are like a first round pick worthy enough in a trade. And that's fine. You can add a first round. That is A-okay. But this is what I came up with here. Now you can see here it was telling me about consecutive draft years and how I guess whatever years I put wouldn't really make sense for it, but it doesn't matter the years. This is just whatever picks. I feel like this could work. I think this would be a great trade for both sides. Bulls fans, you're trying to do a rebuild, but you can show your team that you'll still at least have players where you'll try to quote-unquote compete, because you're going to have Kevin Huerter, you're going to have Harrison Barnes, and what's perfect about this is you can also trade these players away later for more assets. And that's also the same thing I would say for a lot of players on the other teams. But you could trade these guys away for more picks, for more stuff that can help you guys on your rebuild. That's how I'm thinking when it comes to this trade. For the Kings, this is just to help you guys compete more. So that's why I gave you Zach Lavine, because Zach Lavine will definitely help you guys in the next step of competing once again. But this one, I feel like out of all the ones I've done, maybe the Miami Heat or another one, and the Knicks, but I feel like this was going to be the most controversial because I feel like Kings fans really, really appreciate both Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes. So I didn't really know how they were going to feel about this trade. And yeah, I don't know. If you're upset with it, sorry. If you're happy with it, that's great. So now let's move on to the last two teams. The second to last team that we will mention when it comes to the top 5 teams I think that Zach Lavine could be traded for is the Orlando Magic. Yes, I think this could work out for the Orlando Magic. Here is my trade. So first off, the reason why I'm going to trade them to the Orlando Magic is because I feel like the Orlando Magic are another team that is a young team that's coming up, that's really showing that they can compete and are just missing that last piece. I think that last piece is having a veteran superstar. I think that Zach Lavine could help this team go to that next step and be not just playoff contenders, but maybe even conference finals contenders. Because you already have a great team there, and if you add Zach Lavine, I feel like that'd be huge. And here's how the trade would go down. Now, the Magic are probably in a very unfair trade. Like how I did this, you could probably argue that, not probably, you could definitely argue that the Orlando Magic should get more picks in return. But here's what I came up with. The Magic will get Zach Lavine, a first round and second round. Now looking at it, I would probably say they should get maybe 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. I think that's more fair. And in exchange, the Bulls are getting Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz, Chet Howard, 3 first rounds, and a second round. I think this is the trade that could be interesting. Just imagine it. Zach Lavine going to the Orlando Magic. There's not any superstar that I would think wants to go there, but I feel like they could get a good amount of stuff from Zach Lavine. Now, do I think this trade is very possible and has the highest chance of happening? No, because most likely they're going to try to give some respect for Zach Lavine and aren't going to trade him to something like the Orlando Magic. Now, the Orlando Magic, again, are an up-and-coming team, so maybe Zach Lavine has some thoughts about it, but I don't really think he'd want to go to Orlando because they're not in any spot where they're going for a championship. They're getting there when it comes to playoff contenders, but not there yet. Maybe with Zach Lavine, they could go to that next step. But again, I think this is at the bottom for teams that will likely get the chance of acquiring Zach Lavine. And yeah, again, this is kind of how I would see the trade go down though, because they're another team where there's not that many players I feel like they would want to trade for. They're not going to trade Franz Wagner. They're not going to trade Paolo Banchero. They're not going to trade Wendell Carter or any of those people. So their best bet was... Actually, I don't think Wendell Carter is there anymore. Is he still there? He might be still there. I'll put it on my screen if he's there or not. But what I'm trying to say is I think this would just be this is one of those teams I put on here that would just be fun if we actually saw Zach Lavine going there. And again, then you get back Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz, 2 guys that you could easily put in another trade for and get more assets in return. Now, that was the second to last team. Let's move on to the final team. The final team that I want to talk about is the Golden State Warriors. I'm sure some of you are probably going to expect the Warriors to be on this list because I actually have heard that they are a team that might be interested. Like, maybe not as high as the other teams, but I'm sure they'll take a look at it. And it's no secret with how their team is doing. As of recording right now, the Golden State Warriors are on a 6-game losing streak. Klay Thompson is doing the worst he has ever done. Draymond Green is just having, he's been in fights and stuff in his entire career. That's nothing new. But he has been in a lot, which one of them has cost him a 5-game suspension. Chris Paul is doing, well, as we expected, because Chris Paul is unfortunately getting there with age. And there's really no one else on the team that is helping Steph Curry. Steph Curry is really the only player that's doing incredible. He's actually having like MVP numbers right now. And now we know, like, come on. We know he's going to need help. We know he needs somebody there that can just save him from this madness. And who better yet but Zach Lavine? I think Zach Lavine would be a perfect fit for this team. That could be Steph and Zach trying to carry this team to one more championship. And we know Zach Lavine would go crazy with this team because he knows that this can be a great team in the playoffs. And again, I said it all the time, never sleep on the Warriors. So here's how I think the trade would go down. This is out of all the trades I have on here, this is probably the fairest trade. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we have some disagreements with it. But the Bulls would get Klay Thompson, 2 first rounds and 2 second rounds. The Warriors would get Zach Lavine, 1 first round, 2 second rounds. That actually should be 2 first rounds. I don't know what happened to the other one, but it should be 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds. And I feel like this would be a pretty even trade. I know Klay Thompson isn't doing the best, and I feel like this could work out. I think this could work out for both teams. Now, here's the problem that I feel like we would face when it comes to this. Even though a lot of teams don't do it anymore, I'm sure the Warriors would respect Klay Thompson and not trade him. But let's be real here. Klay Thompson, he got injured in the 2019 NBA Finals. He was gone for a while. He was going to come back, got injured again, and didn't come back till, the 2022 season? And, they won the chip and did their thing. But unfortunately, Klay does not look the same from last year. For the 22-23 season, because he came back, I believe, in the 21-22 season. And then, they won the chip, and then 22-23, he was still looking good. But this season, he has just plummeted with numbers, plummeted with skills. Age is getting to him. Those injuries are getting to him. And, fortunately in the NBA, I know there's times when they try to be loyal, and they'll, have you stay there because of how loyal you've been and how much you've done for them. But at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and just like any other business, they will make decisions even if the majority of people don't think it's a good idea. And I'll end it off by saying this when it comes to talking about the Warriors. You as Warriors fans, if you were a Warriors fan watching this, you've been watching them this entire season. Now let me ask you, what would you rather have? Would you rather try to compete with Klay Thompson on this already awful team? Or do you want to take the chance and having a 28-year-old, even though he can get hurt here and there, a 28-year-old help Steph Curry go to, what would it be? I think his 5th ring now? Who do you think would have a better chance of bringing him there? Klay Thompson or Zach Lavine? And that's going to be the end of my video. So appreciate you guys for listening to this episode. I actually had a lot of fun doing this, especially finding out this Fanspo trade, NBA trade thing. I've been doing it on my own time, just having fun, figuring out what trades I could do and if it would actually work. And it's been fun. I would definitely recommend using this one again. Just be, as far as I know, it seems to be a pretty good website to use when it comes to doing trades and stuff, and it does tell you a lot. It has a cool little like statistic like system they use and stuff. And I don't know much about computers, so I don't really know how it works. Like exactly, but it's still cool. And again, I'm sure there were some people definitely that are watching this video and were thinking, nah, I would not do this trade. And definitely let me know. If you feel like that the trade I did and you're like, nah, this isn't it, Jeremy, you did not cook with this trade, let me know and tell me either what trade you would do instead, what other teams you feel like I should have added but I didn't, and like how you think the trade would go. Or, maybe if you want to, you can grade them as well. I would love to hear you guys like grade my trades and say like, would this actually be good for this team or that team? And just, hear your guys' opinions. I always love hearing your guys' opinions. But we'll end it off here. So please make sure, to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video with anyone that you know that would appreciate basketball. And again, just thank you guys for always following and watching my videos. It really means a lot when you guys support the channel. But without further ado, I am your host as always, Jeremy, and I am signing off for the day. Have a good day, everybody.